So we're here with Lou Halamek from Stanford University at the SESAM conference in Prague. What got you from California to Prague, Lou?
William, it's always great to come to SESAM. For me, as a practicing neonatologist, it depends on when I have openings in my schedule. So this year I was able to carve that time out. Also, the fact that it's great to see people that I've had contact with, especially during COVID. Weren't able to meet with them face to face. Now you can actually have some personal contact with them. Lise Brogard gave the keynote address this morning. Lise spent some time at CAPE at our training center this past summer. And we're working on some of the projects that she's involved with now remotely. I've got two team members from my training center, CAPE, who are also presenting here. Rod Galindo, who's going to talk about our work with newborn intubation. And then an undergraduate from Stanford, Annabelle Smith, who was able to do a short project with us a summer ago, looking at the ability of healthcare professionals to self-regulate their own physiology in response to newborn resuscitation situations. So it's a great opportunity for them to get out and talk about what we've been doing.
So these are some of your recent projects. When did you get involved with simulation, and what was your first project in simulation?
Well, actually, I became involved in simulation way back in 1995. I was at a medical meeting in Vail, Colorado, and I just happened to walk into a session that was led by Dave Gaba, who was talking about some of his early work with anesthesia simulation. And so that began a collaboration. We ran our first simulated newborn resuscitation program in 1997. And since that time, in 2002, we opened up the Center for Advanced Pediatric and Perinatal Education. That was founded with a gift from a very generous community donor that helped us get started. And subsequent to that, we've been involved in a lot of different things with hands-on simulation to the point where we actually have turned over a lot of our work to the neonatal resuscitation program of the American Academy of Pediatrics. Yeah. So a lot of the things that we've developed at CAPE are now actually embedded in that national program that goes out to literally millions of healthcare professionals in the U.S. Our research programs also have been successful in that we've been able to obtain funding and look at some really interesting questions using simulation-based methodologies.
So you've mentioned quite a few of the contributions of your team. What do you consider you and your team's biggest impact on medical simulation?
I think our biggest impact has been in two different areas. The first is what I would call gravitas, using simulation, using debriefing in a very serious way. We think about every sim that we run, every debriefing that we participate in as an opportunity to get better. And for me in neonatology, that involves saving babies' lives. And so it's an opportunity to get better at giving a kid a chance at a normal life. The way we debrief, for example, I think is different than a lot of the methods that are used for debriefing elsewhere in the world. And we've learned a lot from our colleagues at NASA, in aerospace, in commercial aviation, in the military, and actually in professional sports also, looking at the way they use video, for example, to generate a lot of data about human and system performance and talk about that in great detail during the debriefing. So we focus on making sure that our debriefings are always conducted in a very business-like, matter-of-fact, professional manner. We really don't talk about feelings, that we don't see that as an important part of what we do. We're really looking at what people are doing during those simulations and focus on their performance. So I think that's one area. The second area actually is in terms of research. I'm a former college athlete myself, so I know that practice does help you get better. And so we've never looked at questions about, well, does simulation work? That seems pretty trivial. But what we have looked at is using the simulated clinical environment to create a highly standardized set of circumstances that healthcare professionals are then immersed in. So we reduce the number of confounding variables. And the kinds of questions we can ask in that highly standardized simulated environment are questions that are simply too complex, too difficult to answer in the real clinical environment. And so I think that we've set the standard for how you would perform that kind of research using simulation and then how that relates to actual the clinical practice of medicine.
Thank you. And are there any regrets, any frustrations about things that have not happened or not happened yet in medical simulation?
I wish it could move faster. I wish I had some of the resources that I have now when I started this back in the 90s, and I think about how much further along the pathway we could be. Currently at Stanford and at Packard Children's Hospital, we're awaiting the construction of the new CAPE, the new Center for Advanced Pediatric and Perinatal Education. It's actually going to be on the second floor of our hospital, just down the hall from our neonatal intensive care unit. And we're going to use that as actually a place where our obstetricians, OB anesthesiologists, OB nurses, neonatologists, and neonatal nurses can essentially do just-in-time training. We'll be able to do our debriefings there, our standardized scheduled training programs. It really is going to be a center that's going to be linked to the daily practice of medicine within our mothers and babies unit. The other big project that we are about to embark on at Stanford is actually the creation of a perinatal operations center. That's going to be linked with CAPE, and part of that operations center is going to involve the use of about, I think it's 63 cameras and 25 microphones that are going to be set up around the beds in labor and delivery, the neonatal resuscitation beds. So we are literally going to have terabytes of real human and system performance data that we'll be able to debrief in the new CAPE. We'll be able to transmit that video, debrief immediately afterward. We'll be able to do real detailed analysis and do more formal debriefings later in time after the actual resuscitation. So my goal is to link up the new CAPE with the Perinatal Operations Center and see how those two entities can actually influence real care, our care of real mothers and babies within the Johnson Center, which is our perinatal unit. That's what I'm working toward. I want to make sure that I can stay alive and stay in practice until that actually happens. That's my goal.
Almost sounds more like a task list and a work plan than regrets, but I can see this happening. Thank you very much for talking to us. I'm really looking forward to a more extensive interview in the magazine SimZine.
Well, thank you, Willem. It was my pleasure.